Hello and welcome to Breakdown with Tim and Anne. I am Anne Stott, your co-host.
And I'm Tim McCarthy, your co-host.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
Well, I'm always happier when I see you. So there's that.
Likewise. Always.
Yeah. But here on Breakdown, we do start with a sort of temperature taking of our personal well-being. Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. As you know, I've had some very intense family stuff going on, some medical emergencies and crises. And so I've been wrapped up in that. But when I come up for air and I see what's going on, I have to say, I'm not really in touch with the anger right now. I feel really, really sad. And I know I have a lot of sadness anyway about my family stuff, but so it could be just all bleeding together. But also I just feel this like incredible grief. I talked about this in a video yesterday, like the anniversary of January 6th.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've illegally interfered in the country of Venezuela, which we're going to get into in depth later. You know, we've got a president talking about taking part of a country that's supposedly an ally of ours. And I just feel this like deep sadness that our country is so susceptible to bullies.
Yeah.
You know, and I know a lot of people voted for him like with skepticism or because they thought he'd do something that Kamala Harris wouldn't do. And we've, you know, broken down how frustrating and maddening that is on so many levels. But also, some people in America just like a bully.
Yeah.
And they like us beating our chests and they like us saying, hey, we're more powerful, so we get to do whatever we want. You know, and I just feel really sad about where we are and afraid about where we're going. You know? And that doesn't mean I'm not going to do things about it or speak out about it, but really sitting with like we both love James Baldwin so much and like what it means about like the soul sickness of our country.
Yeah.
That we can, you know, empower someone who would do things like this. And it's not surprising that he's doing things like this. This is who he is, you know?
We've given him a permission slip, and then he's in turn given the worst elements of our country a permission slip.
Yeah. So that's what I've been sitting with. What's your emotional temperature?
Yeah, no, that tracks with me. That really resonates. I mean, I think on the deeply personal level, this has been a tough time. I realized that in 2025, both my husband and I have gone to the hospital and had hospital stays for health scares, ultimately not anything dire or serious or life-threatening, but very pressing at the time and pressing because it came out of the blue and so forth. And without going into details, mine happened in Barcelona. As you know, I was flying back from a conference in Brussels and I collapsed at the airport and spent the night, 36 hours in a Barcelona hospital. And then my husband, actually shortly before the Thanksgiving break, had to go to the hospital for a couple of things, all unexpected, all out of the blue, all sort of in the moment terrifying. And so, and I'm thinking about this in relationship to our parents who are aging, who we will ultimately have to take on a larger role as caregivers for in the not too distant future. And, we're supposed to be taking care of them and being ready to take care of them. And we're in this situation where we're like taking care of each other and they're taking care of us, which feels frustrating and a little shame-inducing, if I'm being really honest. And so, there's that. And we've had a lot of loss this year. We've lost a lot of friends. We've lost friends to cancer. We've lost friends to suicide. We've lost friends to ALS. We've lost friends to drug overdoses. And it's just like most of the people we've lost have been under 50. And like, that's a really, that's, and then to think about our own mortality in these moments more directly and urgently is now a reality. And so I'm kind of sitting with that. And there's like a dissociation that comes from that, I think, which mirrors my larger dissociation with our political culture in this country and the larger kind of global catastrophe we're all experiencing and the trauma we've been going through over the last number of years. So, I feel like there's a personal, like, sense of being unwell potentially and to need to take care of ourselves and each other, but then also that we're living in a world that is sick, and also in need of urgent care, that it's not getting. And then to your point about the bullies, I mean, I've been saying this for years now that Trump is, I mean, he has transformed the meaning of the bully pulpit.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's been a lot of work done, writing done, linguists and others who have talked about Donald Trump's communication style is the level of a sixth grader. And I would argue that his behavior is too. That he is a middle school yard bully, surrounded by people who are drawn to people like that for whatever fleeting sense of power and delusion they can soak up in the moment, to abuse the power that they then have and they're infused with in order to do the work of dehumanizing and destroying other people. And you see it in all of these manifestations. You see it in his cabinet, you see it in the members of his administration, you see it in the cowards in Congress, you see it in the ICE agents who are raiding our communities across the country, the National Guard who's going into the cities of our countries right now, global kind of new neo-colonial imperial takeovers of country we'll get into later. It's all, I mean, the bullying is at every level, and it's just so base in its core that it's really hard to look at this country right now and have any respect for us.
Yes.
Because on the one hand, we have elevated and empowered these people, this cadre of bullies. And on the other hand, we have so far been incapable of mobilizing mechanisms of accountability, whether that's our own courage to speak up and to speak out, to stand for something, or to use the institutions that we have that should be strong, that are caving left, right, and center. And so, that's kind of where I am. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed, and I have no respect for my country. And not that it's ever been perfect. I'm not a fan of nostalgia, right? That's what gets us into trouble with the MAGA people, right? Like America was somehow great and we're going back to it. Like, no, this is a tire fire of epic proportions. So you asked how I am. I'm great. So, yeah. So do you find, because I was struck by what you opened with, and then in sort of my own talking here, we often merge and mash up the personal and the political. Do you find that the kind of personal sadness infuses the sadness that you feel politically, or do you feel like the sort of larger sadness, right, makes the personal sadness more deep or more difficult to sort of crawl out of? Like, how do you see that relationship? Because they're clearly intertwined.
I think they're deeply
simultaneous and coincidental. I don't know if they're causal, and I don't know if I'm making sense.
I think that depends on the day, right? Like, I think there are days where the political news is so disheartening, demoralizing, twisted, surreal, that it makes it very hard to feel grounded in anything. And then I think there are times when, like, my personal emotional state is sort of coloring how I'm interacting. Like I might be more angry right now about everything I'm seeing about our government, and I just don't have that. I'm just like, wow, this is really sad that we could go down this road. And again, James Baldwin said that this country would rise and fall on the question of race, and certainly one way to interpret where we are is this unbelievable backlash to having a Black president. And from Trump's motivation to run, from the
original birther,
exactly. Through to, all these white dudes loving his subtle and not so subtle racist messaging, and bully messaging, we're the best. We get to be the best. We get to be number one. It's like, wow, what does it mean about our humanity, that we're susceptible to someone like him, someone like, it's just so disturbing, so profoundly disturbing. And to your point about all the people around him and all the people willing to suck up to him and who are afraid of him and, who clearly don't have any integrity. And we're going to talk more about Mamdani later in the episode, but like his half an hour in the White House was so fascinating because he has authenticity. And he knows who he is, and he wasn't going to play Trump's game. And he like neutralized Trump, like he had the force or something. And by the end of the half hour, Trump was literally like slobbering over him. And as the Pod Save America guys pointed out, Trump does like a good looking man. Like,
oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, I do. I know you can appreciate a good-looking man.
I can appreciate
even if it's not your thing necessarily, but yeah.
No, I appreciate a good-looking man. Yeah. But so who knows if it was just that simple, but clearly like the force, I really feel like I was just fascinated by that moment in a study of when someone who has true integrity can go into that meeting grounded and clear about who they are. He's got nothing. Like he's got nothing, Trump.
Go ahead. Yeah. No. I was also fascinated by that moment. Just in terms of like the optics and the audio of it, right? And the visual of it, which I suppose is what optics are. Like Mamdani standing, right? Trump is sitting at his desk, right? So he's standing at his desk, but Mamdani's above him and stood there and was almost in a gentle kind of goading, right? And Mamdani has this, I think we'll talk more about him later on, but he has this, one of the things that I really appreciate about him from stylistically, but I also think it has substance, is that he doesn't take himself too seriously, but he's a very serious person. And Donald Trump takes himself very seriously and is a completely unserious person. And for Trump, all of this is a game. For Mamdani, this is the essential work of what it means to be in service to society. So they're actually studying contrast, but at the end of the day, in all sorts of ways, right? And visually, you can see that old and young, standing, sitting, Muslim, whatever the hell, Christian, whatever, like, white and brown and all these things. But they're also two successful boys from Queens who love New York.
They are also two successful boys from Queens who love
one of
New
whom
York.
Was loved as a child and the other one who was not loved as a child. Yeah. And so it was, I found the whole thing fascinating. And the fact that Mamdani, and I know he had his critics, or a lot of people are, is he selling out? Or, there are all these people so quick to some left people, like progressive, our people, right, who were critical of Mamdani even going or whatever. And I'm like, no, he played him like a fiddle.
Yeah.
Played him like a fiddle.
Yeah.
And then Trump, to your point, Trump goes to like, he's a very fine looking man or whatever he said. I'm like, girl, you are thirsty. Like what? He went to that all boys boarding school. I mean, what was going on? You know, anyway, that's a whole nother conversation, but yeah, Trump really does. I mean, like Jack Nicklaus's penis, and like he's very, very interested in like, and I was just interested in everybody's looks. He's always talking about women too, of course, in all these misogynistic ways that we know. But I don't know. But he does have this very strange affinity for men and their parts that are impressive to him.
And he likes musical theater.
He loves musical theater.
What does it mean?
And yet has ruined the Kennedy Center.
And yet has ruined the Kennedy Center. So many things are true at once right now.
So many things are true at once. Chaos.
And there's so many things I want to talk to you about because it has been a long time since we've been together. Yes. But I want you to maybe share whatever you want to share about part of why it's been a long time since we've been together.
Yes. So thank you for that. And I won't dwell on this. The end of 2025 could not have taken longer and could not have come sooner from this guy's perspective on the world. It's been a very, very difficult several months, in part because I have found myself literally and figuratively in crosshairs. That, as you know, as our folks who listen to us know, last June, my student Melissa Hortman, former speaker of the Minnesota state legislature, was assassinated at her home along with her husband and their dog, and that really shook me. And I've talked about that before. And I found out the morning of the first No Kings rallies in June last spring, and which we were both at in Provincetown, and that really shook me. And I spent the summer really like shaken over that, and really did a deep kind of reckoning about how I teach and who I am and what I do and what's going on. And it really sent me reeling in really profound ways. And so I started the school year kind of still unsettled and disrupted and really feeling unstable, not unstable mentally or psychologically, but unstable. Like I was like standing on uneven ground. Which is not a good way to like start teaching. And I love teaching, as you know, and I was teaching a lot this fall. I front loaded my teaching. So I was teaching most of my classes this fall. And then I'm teaching a course in J term. We should say that it's January 7th right now, the day after the 5th anniversary of January 6th, not unrelated to all these things. And so I front loaded all of my teaching this year. And in early, whenever it was that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, which of course kind of bookended the long summer for me. Melissa first, and then Charlie Kirk, obviously very different people. And I was connected deeply to Melissa personally, spiritually, politically, and otherwise, not connected at all to Charlie Kirk. Although after his assassination, when there were really calls to kind of go after the people who had who were mocking him or were saying, critical things about him in the wake of his assassination, which I did not do. There was a real call to kind of go after folks. And as you probably know, Turning Point USA, which is his organization, which his wife now runs, Erica Kirk, they had put together over a series of years a professor watch list of professors across the country at various universities and colleges who were, enemies. Basically, it's a kind of enemies list or a blacklist. And I did not know until he was assassinated that I was on that list. And I am among about a dozen or so Harvard faculty members who are on the list. And I'm the only person at the Graduate School of Education on the list. So I found that out in part because I've been an uptick in sort of hate mail that I've been getting, some interesting correspondence, which I'm not, not foreign to me to receive weird things in the mail. And this year's been an uptick in this year. But anyway, I found this out, which was terrifying enough because evidently there was an entire kind of set of a lot of online chatter and right-wing kind of social media circles to kind of turn the watch list into a hit list. But at the same time this was going on, there was also Fox News had rediscovered, which is a strategy that these folks are employing, these kind of campus watch right-wing groups that are really trying to police the campuses and sort of cancel professors and come after the woke faculty. Fox News resurrected a video of a program that I did with two of my colleagues at Harvard in the wake of the Charlottesville crisis on the history of political violence in the United States. And long story less long, the Fox News decided they were going to turn this into a thing and create a story out of nothing, resurrecting an old video, taking what me and two of my historian colleagues said, all of whom are scholars of nonviolence and violence and so forth in the United States, take things we said out of context and make a claim based on the out of context quotes that we Harvard's woke professors, and there happened to be a woman, a black guy, and a gay guy, me. And so it was like, it was like a bad joke, like, a black guy, a woman, and a feminist and a gay guy walk into a, academic panel, what could happen? And so, so we were like, central casting for these people. Yeah. But basically we have created a culture of wokeness that has created a culture of intolerance that has been infesting the young people and the young generation of this country for a generation now. And it's precisely this culture of intolerance, which Charlie Kirk represented the antidote for on college campuses, that led to the hostility and therefore the violence and therefore his assassinations. They were trying to take something I said after Charlottesville and turn it into me being responsible in some way, at least rhetorically, and people like me being responsible for Charlie Kirk. So you can imagine, and Fox News did a series of articles about this. They kept trying to gin it up and have it catch on and be a thing. And they sent at one point a private photojournalist, a paparazzi photographer, to find us at home. And so long story less long again, even though this is too long, it was a pretty terrifying time, and a time where the school expressed to me that they were concerned, which is not something I'd really ever experienced before, because we have all sorts of cybersecurity and all sorts of folks really, monitoring what's going on, because Harvard too is in the crosshairs. And so the compound effect of that was pretty terrifying, I got to say. And there was a period of time in October when I asked you if we could take down our YouTube channel for a bit. And now we'll have it back up again, because I wasn't quite sure what was happening. And I was worried for my physical safety. I was worried for my professional security, job security, and other things too, because it feels like a politically violent time. And I felt myself very much in the crosshairs at that moment. And I was afraid, in a way that I'm not usually afraid. I'm pretty, me, I'm pretty tough, maybe naively so. I'm not someone who gets scared easily or shook easily. And I was both this fall and this summer, and I'm just slowly coming out of that, in part because I had a wonderful, wonderful fall of teaching, and my students were amazing, and I have incredible support. My husband's been just a champion during all this, my parents and my friends like you and others who know that I've been going through this, who've been, holding me in a time when I needed that. And I'm not good at asking for help. So that's why we have not been out of touch for all those months. We've been in touch, of course, and you've been an incredible, I should say publicly here, that you've been an incredible source of soul sustenance for me and love, that I do not take lightly, and that I'm not sure I could have gotten through this period without. So I just want to say that to you, because now is the time. So that's why we've taken a little hiatus, but we're back live, and I'm back live, and I'm still here, and we are going to carry on, because that's all we can do.
Well, thank you for telling us about that. These things get reported in the news, and sometimes we hear the personal stories, sometimes we don't, but the behind the scenes impact of being targeted in this way. And, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to make a joke, but it is just so shocking how deep they had to go to try to find anything. Like if this panel from post Charlottesville is like the thing that they thought was going to like take off, like what, like there's this rhetoric about how, you know, campuses are teeming with anti-white, overly woke rhetoric. And it's like, this is what you had to do, you know?
Yeah, right,
It's so
right.
pathetic. And but it doesn't change the fact that it did real damage in your life.
It did.
And also for your whole community, because we were all scared for you and you know, on edge about your well-being, about your husband's well-being. And you know, and again, in a way, I guess this goes back to bullies and like, you know.
Absolutely. But they're bullies with guns. And they're bullies with guns with rapid fire social media capacities.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter that there's no context. It doesn't matter that the evidence is false or falsified. It doesn't matter that it's ancient and they're trudging it back up to put it into another thing. I mean, none of this matters because we are just living in an age where everything is so fast and everyone is so armed. I heard a statistic the other day that there are 100 million more guns in America than there are people in America.
I've heard things like that. I don't have the exact numbers, but I heard it around the horrible anti-Semitic shooting in Australia, and
that's
there
right.
was about the last mass shooting they had there, which was almost 30 years ago.
You say decades ago.
Yeah, and
we had
then they enacted stronger gun laws, and they did a buyback. And at that time, they bought back like I think several 100,000 automatic weapons from Australians. And somewhere in that information was the information about how many semi-automatic weapons there are in this country. And whatever the number is, it's too many.
We have hundreds of millions of guns in this country. And it's like, it's crazy. But anyway, armed to the teeth. And so therefore, you know, I mean, everything feels ratcheted up for sure. There's no question. And I mean, I wish they were just schoolyard bullies in 6th grade, you know, taking the kickball, right? Or like pushing us up against the wall during, you know, recess, right? Or stealing our lunch in the cafeteria. Like I'd go back to, although they stole our SNAP benefits. And other than, I mean, there are all these ways in which
and our healthcare.
And our healthcare, right? So there is all of that. But yeah, no, it's crazy. And I just want to say, you know, I have supports and privileges around me and you know, relative to who I am that help protect me more than a lot of other people. There are people, I have colleagues across the country who have been fired over social media posts about Charlie Kirk, for instance, right? And so, you know, there are people out of jobs, right, because they posted something critical about Charlie Kirk. And so there's that, right? There are people who have gotten, you know, routine death threats over these kinds of things. I've not received, you know, that level of intimidation or threat. But there's more than enough to indicate that that's where was going and could go. And I also have a university, and I should say this because I am sometimes critical of my workplace, a university that really stepped up in that moment. I had deans who were very, very supportive of me, right, to the point where like hugging me after a faculty meeting at one point when I broke down, to cybersecurity experts who Harvard employees that were meeting with me privately to talk about enhancing my cybersecurity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like, you know, I'm incredibly rich with resources and therefore privilege. I'm also, you know, I'm a white man who of a certain age who teaches at Harvard. And so I have those privileges too. So I don't want to like pretend that I'm like, oh my God, like everyone in America needs to play violins for Tim McCarthy, right? That's not what I'm saying. But when it's happening to you in the moment, it doesn't feel like privilege. And when it's happening to you in the moment, it doesn't feel like, oh, there are people who are worse off because it's so urgent. And the fact of the matter is that all of us, right, who stand for something in opposition to whatever it is that runs this country right now, to the bullies, right? If you are an anti-bully, you are at least metaphorical metaphorically and rhetorically in the crosshairs, if not worse.
Absolutely.
And
And I
so,
appreciate you acknowledging all of that. And I just want to say, like, if your life is being threatened, your life is being threatened.
right, or your job is being threatened, or your physical safety is being threatened, right? I mean, that there's a reason why they call it a threat.
Exactly.
So anyway, I will say that the holidays were helpful, and because I really did take a break. I got off screens. I really tried to have a very strict diet of news. And yet, speaking of that, the Trump regime has had quite a holiday season, moving out of 2025 and into 2026. The madness does not end. And I wonder, the title of our show today is "To What End Any of These Things Are Moving." I mean, from the Epstein files to the abduction of the head of state of the country of Venezuela and his wife, to the claim that, you know, the threat on several other countries, Colombia, Cuba, right, in our hemisphere, Greenland. Now Trump's saying, I'm not gonna invade Greenland. I'm gonna purchase Greenland, because that's now a thing, right? I mean, there are so many things that are going on. Healthcare benefits soaring, SNAP benefits being taken away, but there's so many things. I mean, there's a litany, right, of this. The Jack Smith stuff. Like, I mean, there's so many things. So how are you? I mean, I was dieting on news during the break, and I know you had family concerns that were pressing on you and taking up a lot of your time and energy and headspace and heart space. So how do you, and can we make sense of this? And to what end is all of this moving?
Well, I think it's another one of these situations where many things are true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to say, first and foremost, and I'm getting this perspective through what I'm seeing online, and also through a friend of mine who is Venezuelan American,
Yep.
who has been very politically involved on and off. And I mean, there is this reality that, as illegal and ill-conceived as what the Trump administration has done in Venezuela over the last week is, the Venezuelan people have been living with repression and violence and poverty, and they are embracing this, or many of them are embracing this, as a potential for, like, any change.
Yeah.
You know, my friend posted the other day, she was like, imagine if Trump really takes hold of all the power in this country. Congress is sort of a theatrical sham. You know, 10 years from now, there's no free press anymore. Millions of Americans are living as refugees in other countries. And then, you know, China drops in and takes Trump. Like, even if what China did was wrong and we don't trust China, there might still be a sense of relief or hope or potential for hope. And so I kind of want to forefront that, because, you know, the humans most deeply affected by this right now are the Venezuelans. And if something good comes out of this for them, that I would be happy about that. And also, I also need to say that I'm not an expert on South American politics would be the most laughable understatement.
Same.
But what I do know is, at the same time, that Trump has violated the laws of this country. He's violated international law. He has empowered the other bullies of the globe right now, who want nothing more than to just do whatever they want to do, to start doing whatever they want to do. I mean, we have Stephen Miller on television saying the real world we live in is that the powerful people make decisions and they do the things that need to be done. Well, if that's the law we're going to live by now, like, we're in really big trouble. You know, we're in really, really big trouble. And, you know, I think we have a wag the dog situation and we have a money situation. And Trump may think like a sixth grader and he may talk like a sixth grader, but he does have this sort of very shrewd survival intuition.
Yeah. Okay.
And, nobody's talking about Epstein anymore. They dropped the testimony from Jack Smith that he gave behind closed doors to Congress on New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, right.
That's how little they wanted us to read it. And quite frankly, I haven't read it yet, but the people that I've read who've read it say it's damning.
Yeah. Yeah. I've listened to, I've read some of it, and I've seen some of it, but not all of it by any means.
And then on January 3rd, we literally abduct the president of a country, like killing 80 people in that country. I mean, we did.
And then fly him to New York, like he's on a Disney vacation in some twisted universe, and arraign him in New York City, where he's going to be tried on American soil. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I think.
Go ahead. Yeah,
go ahead.
No. I've just talked for a long time.
No. Well, it's fine. we both talked. We both have our moments.
Because that's what we do.
Which is fine. We're talking. But I think what you said is right. Like there may very well be a kind of liberatory possibility in deposing Maduro in Venezuela for the Venezuelan people, who of course should be the center of this conversation, and of course are not in the United States, because nothing is not about us. That may be true. And what has happened and what the Trump administration has done is completely illegal, as you said, both constitutionally based on the laws of the United States and a violation of myriad international agreements, treaties, human rights provisions and standards and so forth. So it's both are true, right? You said many things can be true at once, and it's really true. And I agree, yes, that Trump has a kind of uncanny shrewdness when it comes to his survival instinct. I think we've seen that over and over again. I mean, the fact that he's president again, right, knowing all that we know, is like an example of that. He'll do anything to win, or to do the deal, or to whatever, create a spectacle. And he is totally breathtakingly unstrategic in terms of a plan, right? Like he's great at talking about the deal, and he's great at creating the spectacle, but he is a tire fire in terms of delivering a plan. I mean, how many years have we been waiting for a fucking infrastructure plan, a healthcare plan, an education plan, right? There's no.
Well, and yeah. I mean, the truth is the people who back him now don't want any of those things. They want to abolish all of that. So,
right. Yeah, that's right.
They're fine with the fact that Trump doesn't know how to say, where's the plan? He doesn't want a plan. He doesn't care about a plan. He wants to be in power. He wants to be rich. He wants people to, drop to their knees in front of him.
Yeah.
And within that, there's some deep knowingness that, like, it's him and the white men, right? Like the racism tied up in that desire is powerful. But
with Rubio right by his side, right? There's that too, right? He does have his useful non-white people, even though Rubio
very useful,
Cuban American, white presenting, and doesn't lean hard into his Latino. But
no, they all give him cover. They
all
give him cover.
They do.
Not to mention the gays.
Oh, don't even get me started about it. Trump's gays, for the love of God.
But it's an interesting thing. There was that piece, was it Nicholas Kristof? Maybe you'll remember it. Somebody in the fall was talking about how Trump has gone too fast, too hard, too fast with his authoritarian impulses, and that, like part of how the authoritarians who have power in the world right now have power is that they did make something better first.
Mm. Well,
And
the trains ran on time. That's the joke about Mussolini, right? At least the trains ran on time. Right? People talk about that with Singapore, right? I mean, Singapore has deep authoritarian tendencies, and yet people talk about how orderly and low crime and other kinds of things the society is. I mean, there are elements of authoritarianism that do create order. I mean, they're nothing if not hierarchical. Everyone's in a place, fits in a box, right? There's a lot of policing of that, right? And there may be some upside to that. I mean, mess and chaos is not always the easiest thing to live in, but
I don't think we can identify. I mean, there are people who are happy that there's this show of kicking immigrants out, and there's and the truth is, I certainly in the middle of last year, by the numbers, the Trump administration was actually behind the Biden administration and the
Obama administration.
Yeah. So it was this show, right? But even people who wanted more action on immigration, there's a huge percentage of them who are not happy with how it's being done.
Right.
And they know it's wrong. And then I'm hard pressed to identify one level on which the Trump administration has actually made people's lives better in a fundamental way. Like the prices haven't gone down, the gas prices haven't gone down, people's healthcare costs are going up. And there are people who feel better because they like Trump's message. And so they're relieved. Like I know this woman in Minnesota, actually, this was yesterday, and she's Christian, but she's anti-Trump, but she's in a Christian community with a lot of Trump supporters. And she's very brave about speaking out about how dangerous Trump is. And she posted some stuff about January 6th. And if you support this, how do you call yourself a Christian? And, I read all the comments, and there were these white Christians who were like, oh, I just shudder to think where we would be if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were in charge right now. So there is this kind of cultural identification that makes some people feel good, even if their lives aren't better. But, if he's going to try to run Venezuela and he's going to try to take over Greenland, purchase Greenland, but then we have to run Greenland. I mean, even if this happens, this is so crazy that we're even talking about this. And maybe it's all distraction. This is what's so complicated about him. If all of this is him distracting us from Epstein and Jack Smith, we still have to talk about it. It's still the president of the United States
who abducted the leader of a sovereign country.
Right. But he's also got troops around the country working in a way they're not working. He's spreading, and he's got less money coming in.
Right.
Tax-wise. He's spreading himself very thin very quickly.
Yeah. It's interesting. A couple of things you said there. First is the idea that that she would come swoop in and take Trump, and we'd be like, one of my friends the other day said, so does this mean that Putin can send the KGB to poison Trump's cheeseburger? And
then Putin's more powerful.
But then another friend, because that's, if we're just going to depose or destroy leaders of sovereign nations, it's fair game. It's open season, right? And does that mean Putin can do that to Trump? And then another person, when my friend said, well, millions of Americans would cheer. And I didn't quite laugh at it. I was just sort of we shouldn't be joking about this. This is catastrophic from a multilateral diplomatic international order, human rights, rule of law perspective, right? Pick your lane.
Yeah, we're back to having food tasters.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the fact that the mainstream media has basically settled into a narrative of how will we rule Venezuela? And it's no, we can't go there. That can't be where we settle. Okay, that happens. So what are the nuances of the operational tactics of the Trump regime in Venezuela? Like, no, we have to say this is unacceptable.
Yeah.
To take over, to abduct the leader of a sovereign nation, regardless of whether or not you recognize that person to be the leader of a sovereign nation, right? And it's, I mean, and the other thing is like, and you know Trump's not a reader, and I can't imagine Hegseth is a bibliophile, that these are not people who know anything about the history of U.S. imperialism in Central and Latin America in this hemisphere, right? I mean, how did that work out for us historically, right?
Well, and I have to say, someone else I follow who's a lifelong activist and very smart, they were saying, you know, the only thing really different about this is how blatant and public it is. That we've been messing with heads of state in many countries, particularly in Central and South America, for decades. And they outlined a history of all the ways we have interfered with Haiti. Like, I didn't even know we sent the Marines to take $500 million in gold out of their bank and bring it back to the United States. Like, crazy town.
Right. Well, and you think about the relationship between like oil reserves, right, and American bombings, like we think about the Middle East, right? I mean, it's rarely about weapons of mass destruction and sort of authoritarian terrorist, sympathizing leaders.
Or drugs,
right? And it's right, exactly. And so when we think about this, there is something. I was joking with a friend last night. Again, I don't know why I'm laughing about any of this because none of this is funny. But a friend of mine, we were talking about it and said, well, I mean, it's all about oil. And then another friend was like, well, yeah, I mean, he said that it was all about oil. He consulted with the heads of oil companies and not Congress before he went in to take Maduro, to capture Maduro in Venezuela. And I just sort of like quipped. I said, yeah, they don't even have the decency to lie to us like the Bush-Cheney administration did. I mean, it's like, and well, all administrations, but I'm thinking particularly of Iraq and Afghanistan, which was like such a set of egregious, out of control. Remember those halcyon days, right? I mean, it's just like this is like another iteration of that, but now it's in our own hemisphere, which of course historically like disrupts all of the not healing necessarily, but all of the repair that has been done between some of those bilateral and multilateral alliances with Central and Latin America after all of those years of American imperialism and the violent takeovers, regime change, and the sort of, the raping and pillaging and plundering of countries in the Caribbean and Central and Latin America. And so, here we go. We're going to open that back up. Not that it's ever been closed, but but what's the end game here, as we say in the title of this episode? To what end is this playing out? And now if Venezuela, we're running Venezuela, Maduro's been arraigned in court, he's sitting in jail next to P. Diddy, he can't make this shit up. And then he's I mean, Luigi was there for a little while. Was that where Ghislaine was before she got her puppy?
Oh, is he down by Pitt Street? Is that where he is? He was. Yeah, then he's in the building where Jeffrey Epstein was.
Yeah, where Epstein was killed, right? Where all these things. So, okay, that happened. So now we're running Venezuela. Okay, like there's that. Then we're threatening Colombia, right? And then also Cuba, because that's in the kind of like dream fantasy of Marco Rubio since like diapers. And we're not going to take over. We're going to purchase Greenland. I mean, I'm losing count of the number of countries, sovereign nations that we have threatened or intervened in, right? Or mocked. We're not even, yes, it's January 7th, the first week of 2026, which isn't yet a full year that this monster has been in office. We are still not at the 1 year mark. We are in month 11 plus.
You just made me a little nauseous.
Week 1 of 2026, and the mendacity, monstrosity, and madness is
Well,
out of control.
actually, we do know to what end, right? Like,
Do
I think we do.
we?
I
Okay.
think we know. I mean, not Venezuela specifically, except if we say the money. And also, we were talking about this last night, but I also read, that this is about oil in terms of having the oil and selling the oil, but it's also about the power of the dollar. And
Yes.
Venezuela was trading its oil on the yuan,
Yeah.
not on the dollar. So if that oil is
Right.
under the control of the dollar, that brings the value of the dollar up again, right?
Right.
But yeah, we know to what end. But this is a 80 to 100-year project of rich people to have the money and power.
Yeah.
And they're close to winning. They're very
Yeah.
close to winning. And I think part of what's hard right now is that there's very little active opposition voice.
Well, this is the thing that I'm glad you went there, because that's the thing for me that comes back to what I talked about with like where I am, and where in what stage of breakdown am I in this moment. And I'm having this kind of dissociation because I don't. One of my biggest discomfort zones is feeling like I have zero agency. I have no ability to sort of affect change or to influence the outcome of something. That's not a grandiose kind of narcissistic, egocentric kind of project. It's just like we all want to believe that we have some control over our destinies, right? That we have some control over fixing the injustices before us, right? That motivates you and I a lot, and many people that we know. And for me, it's not just that the opposition has not been effective or as effective as it could be, because I actually think the resistance is growing. I think that you see the No Kings rallies in June and the No Kings rallies in October. There's going to be another one coming up soon, right? Those are powerful. Like my colleague Erica Chenoweth and her research team have come up with this 3.5% rule, which I'm sure you've heard, where if you can get 3.5% of the population involved in the kind of ongoing civil resistance, nonviolent civil resistance, there's more likely transformative change to occur. And we're not yet at that place in the United States, but we're moving in that direction. I do think the resistance is growing, and yet at the same time, the mechanisms of accountability are absolutely failing us, right? There are, obviously examples of where court decisions go, in a better direction. With respect to various things that are being contested legally. There are moments where, Congress voting overwhelmingly, only one person not voting in favor of releasing the Epstein files. Like that was a moment where we're like, oh shit, Congress does function. And there are moments, but they're fleeting moments. But the mechanisms of accountability, whether you're talking about the rule of law or you're talking about the checks and balances of our federal government, you're talking about the ways in which corporate actors or private sector actors can influence the military, right? I mean, there are all these ways that we can think about different stakeholder groups or different institutions, right, or different forces in society as providing some kind of antidote and accountability mechanism for the madness that we're seeing, and that there's just none of that. And I feel like that is less and less the case over time in terms of less and less possibility for accountability. And that's where I start to lose hope, not only in our institutions, but in our ability to reverse course.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from, because it just feels, and of course we know authoritarian regimes, and the Trump regime in particular, they attack all the institutions, which are institutions are the things that hold us accountable, whether they're universities or they're courtrooms or legislatures, whatever it is, whatever institution you're talking about, those are the institutions that are supposed to be strong enough, right, to sustain a vision of a country and the values of a country through really difficult and trying times and times of crisis, which we're clearly in. And yet they're just not working. I mean, the Supreme Court is done, it's over, right? I think about this all the time because, as you know, Ketanji, Judge Brown Jackson and I went to college together. And I think about this all the time. Like every once in a while, like in the supermarket or at the gym or something, I'll be like, or I'll see Ketanji's likeness come on TV, or I'll hear someone talk about her on the radio. And I think to myself, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is an absolutely brilliant, qualified member of the Supreme Court at the highest level of our judicial system, is never going to write a majority opinion during her time on the court. There is a possibility that she will always be writing dissents.
Wow.
Her entire career, if she's there for 30 years, right? And I mean, all of these institutions are caving and they're weakening and they're attacking them, right? Or they're in the case of the Supreme Court, expecting that they will fall in line, right? Those that won't cave have to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Higher education, right? Although higher education is cave too. I can go on and on, but you get what I'm saying. So
I do,
and I think it's accountability.
I think you're right. And I want to be clear that I don't want to say anything about like the millions of people who have, done things they've never done before to, Absolutely. Be counted, as opposed to what this administration is doing and has done. And I know, that millions of people have turned out. And then, like you said, the institutions are failing us. So many of the institutions. And I guess where I'm frustrated is the lack of willingness of political leaders to harness the energy of the people who are willing to show up and protest. Yeah. I mean, I don't, and my friends who are activists are like, because they're politicians, not activists, Anne. Like, they're not organizers. That's not what they do. That's not how they think. Right. They're bureaucrats, basically. And I'm like, but that's not the time we're in, right? Like, that's not the time we're in. And I, like during the government shutdown, like, I mean, no kings happened during the government shutdown, but then like they could have harnessed all of this energy to amplify the messages of why the shutdown was so important. And there was kind of this distance between the people operating the shutdown, which was one of the few true moments of democratic political party, action taking in this last year, because it was one of the only moments where they had actual power. And then they, those 8 people caved. Yeah. So I guess that's my frustration, is that there's this disconnect between the people who could actually from the inside maybe do even the smallest things to shift the direction we're headed in, and these millions of people who are willing to back that up. Yeah. I feel very frustrated about that. And, I don't pretend to know on the to what end question. I am not a scholar or historian of American history, but Heather Cox Richardson was on YouTube the other day saying that it's her belief that these next 90 days are critical. Yeah. Like now that Trump has violated international law, violated US law in such a brazen way, that these, like, at the end of these 90 days, we will know a lot about if he is securing lasting authoritarian dictatorial power or not. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too, because because you see cracks in this, right? One example legislatively, of course, was the sort of defections of the 4 MAGA people that then made it clear that the Republicans were not going to have the votes to keep the Epstein files locked down. And interestingly, the women, right, leading that, as well as Massey, but the women leading, and really MAGA women, like really, I mean, not very distasteful women, who were leading that, and then Congress just like flipping overnight, right, and Trump caving, right, in a way, being like, yes, we should release these, even though there, of course, then the aftermath of this has been a disaster. But there was that kind of break, that kind of
cracking in the authoritarian consensus that led to that overwhelming vote in Congress to release the Epstein file. So there was something like that happened, right? That was a fleeting moment, but it was a moment, right? And it was sort of like,
huge.
Like, what's going on here? This is fascinating. This was not on my bingo card, right? And then you also have, I think, and one of the things that and this gets back to your point about immigration and how dissatisfied people are with the way that immigration policy is being meted out in terms of with respect to the Trump regime, is there has been maybe not universal, but a overwhelming resistance to ICE interventions across the country, in urban, suburban, and rural areas, in red states and blue states, right, all over the country. The resistance that you see, whether it's the whistles in Chicago or it's the suburban community in Massachusetts when the high school student was taken by ICE, or you see it over and over and over again. Mayors, governors standing up to the National Guard coming in, and ICE agents overreaching. I mean, there has not been a warm embrace of ICE anywhere that I have discerned in the country, that people are like, this is not okay. We cannot just disappear people. We cannot just deport people. We cannot just be like, you're brown, come with me, and then we're going to send you to Vietnam. Like, it's just, or kill you, or imprison you, or all the things, right? It's such a overwhelmingly violent system of policing for the purposes of destroying people's lives. And there's been a widespread resistance and a standing up, like people literally putting their bodies on the line in so many places. And that to me has been like, ICE is not welcome across this country. And that was not also on my bingo card. And that does give me hope, because there are lots of places that are very different politically than you and I are that are standing up to ICE. Because the woman who was disappeared was the mother of my kid's soccer buddy, or the person whose bodega I get the newspaper at every morning, or the coffee at every morning, right? And ultimately these kind of local relationships.
Well, and I think people don't understand, white people who don't understand discrimination don't understand how discrimination works.
Right.
And so they thought, Trump said, well, we're getting rid of the worst of the criminals.
Right.
And they don't know that, one, for whatever reason, they're in denial about the fact that he's a liar. And also, they don't know that when someone's stirring up all that hatred and rage against a group of people, there is not going to be a coherent, judicious, fair reckoning with that issue if those people get in power, right? So we knew that he never cared about who was a criminal and who wasn't a criminal. And I have seen white people say, well, if you come into this country illegally, you're a criminal.
Right.
So there is that still out there.
But that's not the overwhelming.
No, it is not.
Those people are not the
but again,
this chorus.
Again, this is too hard, too fast, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's too hard, too fast. Like, people were like, we didn't know there were going to be like military on the streets. Like, what?
And they're just indiscriminate in their discrimination, right? It's just like, it's like, oh, you're black and brown, like get in the van, or you look like you might speak Spanish, or you look like you might be Guatemalan or El Salvadorian or Mexican or Venezuelan. And of course, none of these people have any clue about the distinctions of the different kinds of people from different kinds of places, because they all look the same to them, right? For the reasons you just said about white people being like, anybody who came to this country illegally. Well, like, trace your family tree back, bro.
Yeah. Exactly.
Where do you come from?
Exactly. And I will say this, I do have a friend who is volunteering at immigration court in New York City, like once every other week. She's bilingual, and she's shorter than I am, and she's petite, but she is going and like putting her body between immigrants and ICE agents to try to get them in and out. And these are the people who are here legally, who have papers, who are arriving for scheduled court appointment. You know, these are people seeking asylum.
Hard to follow the law.
Yeah, who are working really hard to follow the law, and they're in danger of being whisked away and held against their will with no recourse in inhumane conditions, potentially for years. And this woman has been doing this for months now. And we were talking in the fall, and I was like, I think we texted about this. I said to her, like, is there any, like, would there be any benefit to a like quit ICE campaign, like encouraging ICE agents to quit? And she was like, I've thought about that. But she said, I got to tell you, the people coming on board now, they're just bullies. They're just really psyched to beat people up.
They keep advertising and lowering the standards for, I mean, this is interesting, right? Because we're the same culture that talks about, well, we can't have affirmative action and everything is a DEI hire and this, that, and everything. And yet we're like, I mean, the standards to become an ICE agent is basically like regular breath and a pulse.
Well, yeah, and they've knocked the training down from 13 weeks to 6 weeks.
And there's no, I mean, at first they were going to be like, we'll pay off your college loan debt. And then like, well, if you didn't go to college, that's fine. Not that you have to go to college, but like, you know, it's like that was the initial draw. They were going to pay off your student loan debt. And then they realized like, oh, there are a lot of people who didn't go to college, right? And then like, there are people who didn't, you know, anyway, the standards are lowering and lowering and lowering, which you can see, right, in the types of people that are being drawn to this.
And they're getting paid more and more.
They're getting paid more than any like healthcare worker in America, right? Other than like, you know, very fancy specialist doctors, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, the ICE agents who are in any American city right now, I would venture to guess, make significantly more in terms of annual salary than the public school teachers in those cities.
Oh,
no question.
Absolutely.
Maybe double. Maybe double. And that is a fucking scandal.
That's a scandal.
You know, also a form of violence if we're being real.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, Heather Cox Richardson, I think, is probably right. It does feel we're not pulling back from the precipice. We're hurtling towards something. And I think a couple of things have happened that I want to lead us to Mamdani. So part of what's happened since the last time we talked was Election Day, and this incredible win for Democrats across the board, local, Senate, state level, city level. Something like I read somewhere 12% of people who voted for Trump in California voted to change the law so that 4 more Democratic seats would be created. Like, it's just like the shift was so dramatic, right? Mm-hmm.
And as the Pod Save America guys said, they were like, well, we shouldn't be surprised because when we look at the last 10 years, we underestimate how Democrats are going to do when Trump isn't on the ballot, and we underestimate how Trump and Republicans are going to do when he is on the ballot, which was, I thought, a very good distinction.
Which is true so far.
But then we also have this unbelievable victory of Zohran Mamdani in New York City as the mayor of the largest city in the country, running as an unapologetic democratic socialist, an unapologetic immigrant, an unapologetic Muslim, and an unapologetic young person. I mean, he even did you see that video? It was a couple weeks before the election, and I think just before his birthday. And he was like, I am young, but one thing I can promise you is that I will get older every day I am in office.
This is what I said before, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. That's a classic example of that, right?
Well, also his social media is so on, and every time I see anything he puts out, I'm like, child of a filmmaker.
Child of a filmmaker, yes, absolutely, child of a filmmaker. But also, like, would you trust any 34-year-old whose social media shit wasn't tight? Like, no. Like, Like if Zoran Mamdani is like, I don't know what TikTok is, I'll be like, girl, then you need to go back to the state assembly.
So true.
Let's be clear, especially in New York. I mean, like, my God,
And I think one of the things, I mean, I'm so inspired by him on so many levels.
I am too. I love him.
But I think this unwillingness to compromise what he's going to work for, both in his speech on election night and then his speech at his inauguration when he said, I've been told that this is the moment to reset expectations and to remind you that governing is hard and that we might not achieve what I've promised, and I will do no such thing.
Yes.
I mean, when was the last time you heard a politician talk like that? I don't know if I can remember it. In my lifetime.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting. I agree with you. I think he's they talked about Obama as a kind of once in a generation person. AOC obviously has that kind of that something, right? That's just, you can't quite put your finger on it, but you can feel it and you see it and you know it because it's there. And he absolutely has that. He has an infectious charisma. I think it is the combination. He's a very serious person who doesn't take himself too seriously. He absolutely, right? I'm a New Yorker. I grew up in New York, in Albany, and I went to grad school in New York City. So New York City is my hometown. I voted for mayor twice when I lived there, and my husband lived there at another point in his life. So we both have been following this very closely because we're both New Yorkers at heart in many ways. I mean, the old brand mantra, right? I love New York with the big heart, right? That I like many T-shirts that said that when I was a kid. He loves New York. There is nothing about and yet at the same time, he's able to answer questions like in the debate when they were asked like Knicks or Nets, right? And Cuomo was like, well, both of them, blah, blah, blah. And he just like burst into laughter. And he's like, he can't even answer that question. Knicks all the way, baby. And I'm just like, I love you, right? Like if he had asked him Yankees or Mets, he would have said Yankees, right? Like, and every New Yorker should say Yankees and Knicks. But anyway, back to the point is that there's something about that. He's funny, he's charming, he is very handsome. I'm a homosexual, I can say that. And he, his wife is really compelling and brilliant and talented. His parents obviously are. He's got a great story, and he loves the city. Like he loves Queens, he loves New York City, he loves all the things that make New York City that you can feel and know in your bones when you live there, like you just take for granted. Like I said, I always used to say that New York City, in terms of my life and travels, I've been everywhere, but I've been to a lot of places, is the most effortlessly diverse place on planet Earth. It's what it is. And does it have problems and inequities and prejudices? Of course. But New Yorkers get diversity is if you don't like it, you live with it. And most people love it.
Yeah, and I can still
that's why you live there, right?
I can get teary watching his video of walking the length of Manhattan.
Oh.
And then this writer who I'm connected to on social media after his inauguration speech, she was like, did you catch how many food references were on that speech? She said she burst out crying when he said, a place where this Muslim kid can grow up eating lox and bagels on Sunday mornings,
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. No,
yeah.
It's all about food and people and vibes and places and it's just great. And and he ran a campaign that did really to me really felt like the Obama campaign. I worked on the 2008 Obama campaign, which was very felt like a social movement. It felt like kind of community or large scale community organizing effort. And he, successfully did that. And just the numbers, the coalition that he put together, right, in order to win and win decisively is really remarkable. But in terms of his inauguration, which was the best thing to watch on New Year's Day, I started out the day supporting my friends who were doing the polar plunge in Provincetown. right? Those insane people who take their clothes off and jump into the, I know you've done it. I'm never going to do it. I will cheer from the snowy beach, and I will buy you your first Bloody Mary or mimosa or hot toddy or whatever you want at the Harbor Lounge afterwards, but I am never putting my naked booty in that ocean on January 1st. Anyway, but I started out doing that, and it is a glorious thing to watch. And my friends who have done it always say it's totally exhilarating. It's like out of body experience, blah, blah, blah. You've done it. I'd love to hear your perspective. But I started like watching that, and then we had a couple of cocktails at Harbor Lounge, and then I came home and I watched the Mamdani inauguration. And I will say that the combination of those things on that day was exactly the way I wanted to start the new year. And I let nothing else infiltrate or intrude that day. That was it.
Perfect.
And a bunch of crazy queers jumping in the goddamn ocean, some cocktails with friends, and then the Mamdani like hope fest at his inauguration. But the thing that was so interesting about there were so many things that I took from it, but you said his mother's a filmmaker, and you can see that in his social media and his campaign videos. Totally true. But also, I couldn't help because New Yorker it's also the theater capital of the United States, or if not the world, and that was so well choreographed. Every single ensemble character played an essential part in weaving together the sort of arc and fabric and story of that day and of that moment. Yeah. Like Bernie Sanders giving that brilliant speech, like, it's not radical, it's not radical, it's not radical. AOC, who's the, a version of him, right? Another kind of version. I mean, the two of them are so incredibly gifted and charismatic and telegenic and eloquent and all of those things. And her kind of opening, and then Mandy Patinkin singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow with the kids from Staten Island. I was like, this is fabulous.
Yeah.
And all of it. And Giovanni's speech was, when he talked to his young self. Just like, I was like, oh my God, these people have me all up in my feels on this day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And I have to say, well, wait, I wanted to go like 3 different directions.
Sorry, I got a little out.
No. I loved all of that. Not to bring us down a little bit, but when I talk on TikTok about politics, and I've posted about all kinds of things, and the racism that I have gotten back around Mamdani is so terrifying and so deeply ingrained and so unapologetic. Unapologetic. Like, this woman was like, anyone who reads the Quran is a terrorist. Like, what? And he overcame all of that. Like, he overcame all of that from the people who believe that. Then from the centrist Democrats trying to play that up.
Not the ones who didn't even endorse him, even in the end.
Who wouldn't say they voted for him?
It's just embarrassing.
Like Chuck Schumer.
Both senators from New York, Schumer and Gillibrand, both refused to acknowledge whether they voted for him. Shame on them.
Shame on them.
Jeffries, the 11th hour endorsement. Shame on you.
And then later, well, I did endorse him. It's like, oh, please. Yeah, you were a huge help.
You were an enormous influence on the campaign. Jesus Christ.
But I think, first of all, his talent and his intelligence and his authenticity and his love of the city and his love of people overcame.
He does love people.
He does. Overcame these attacks from every direction. But in this, to what end? I think the high of the November election and the high of Mamdani have been kind of, I do feel like after the election, I had this sense inside myself of has the ship righted just slightly? Is there some potential for accountability? that we could have this election that was clearly free and fair, which we may not have this coming November.
Mm-hmm.
And yet all of this illegality continues like full steam ahead.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't know, it's hard to hold. It's hard to hold all of it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is hard to hold. There's so much going on, and it is hard to hold. The muscles get weak from holding it all. On the Democratic side of the ledger, on the left, liberal left, center, liberal left side of our side of things, there's also a lot to deal with, right? Like, I mean, so many people. I mean, first of all, the Democratic Party refusing to publish its autopsy. Right? It's reflections on the election. It's like, oh, this won't do any good. First of all, the party owes all of America an apology. And I'm not giving any more money than I've already devoted to people I know who are running for office. And by the way, 5 of my former students won in the November elections. They are at local and state levels, and one of them almost won in Atlanta. And so I was very proud. I gave money to them, and I was very proud of all of them. They won city council positions, including Ruthie June in Boston, who is the head of the Boston City Council, won re-election. She's, I think, a rising star here in Boston, and mayors and city council people and school board folks, and I'm so proud of them. So just had a little moment and shout out to my kids who are out there in the world doing their thing, all grown up now. But the Democratic Party writ large is a hot mess, and nationally, especially, the party is a mess. And they I think, and this is, I will die on this hill, they think they're going to get away with the fact that they lied to us, right? The Biden administration lied to us, the insiders lied to us, the consultants lied to us, the pollsters lied to us, right? Even Kamala Harris and her campaign lied to us.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm clear on what you're exactly saying right now, because I think I know, but I want you to say it.
Biden said he was going to pass the torch and be a one-term president. He never intended to do that. He was on the cognitive decline, and people on the inside of his administration, including his vice president and his wife, the first lady, and other people, and all of the people around him knew that he was in cognitive decline. So the combination of the fact that he promised to be a one-term president and was in cognitive decline that he himself understood that he was going to be, they tried to hide all of that from us and violate the promise that he explicitly stated when he came into office the first time around. So that's one set of things that need to apologize for. And the denial of the fact that he was losing his capacity to govern. And Trump is clearly in cognitive decline as well. That's a whole other thing. But you can't hold him accountable because the accountability mechanisms don't exist. I want to hold my party accountable. Right? I'm a registered Democrat, and I vote for Democrats, and I give money to Democrats, often against my better judgment and bank account capacities, but I do, right? And I'm pretty loyal. Like I'm not loyal without criticism or accountability, but I'm pretty reliable as a voter. I vote in every election, dog catcher on up, and we are owed an apology for this. And they lied to us, and they covered things up, and they pretended what was happening, what we were seeing, was not real. And then expected in 107 days, a historic candidate was going to be able to marshal an impossible coalition at an impossible time in order to mount an improbable win, which was really, really hard for her to do. And so I will give her that, right? And they lied to us about Gaza, and they lied to us about all sorts of other things. And so there's a whole set of things that the Democratic Party needs to, releasing that report would be one way to do that. And they refused to do that, right? They ran David Hogg, who's a very inspiring leader of Gen Z, out of the party and out of party leadership and out of the party, right? Because he dared to say that older folks in safe districts should be primaried.
Yeah.
And then they lied about him. They said that he said every incumbent should be primary. He never said that. Mm-hmm. The Democratic Party could have turned to David Hogg and said, hey, you're a Gen Z influencer. We need your generation. Your generation is actually peeling off of the Democratic Party. What resources do you need? you and Maxwell Frost and your generation to bring your generation to Democratic Party for the next generation or so. Instead, they tell a lie about him and they push him out of the party. So the Democrats have some accountability that they need to be held for too. And then
Absolutely.
also the accountability of the Mamdani piece, right? That you have Schumer and Gillibrand who were cowards and feckless and wouldn't support him. Jeffries, who supports him, is the 11th hour. Most Democrats were unwilling to get behind him. Obviously, AOC and Sanders and other left members of the Democratic Party, which of course you and I affiliate, were willing to do that because we saw his promise and his talent, his intellect, his authenticity, all the things, right? But the Democratic Party is in peril. And if there's going to be a force of opposition or accountability at the federal level in terms of our system of checks and balances, it has got to come from the Democratic Party. And they are, so right now, they are absolutely ill-equipped to do it. And I do think that the first way to heal is to admit that you made a mistake. And the first way to get to truth and honesty is to admit that you lied. So I'm gonna hold that line. But the other thing is that I think, and this is something the left has to deal with, is that we can't expect that, and not that you do, but there are a lot of people who are like, well, now that a Democratic Socialist has won the mayor of New York City, we can do this everywhere. No, we can't. The Democratic Party has got to be a party where some places we get Spamberger, sometimes we get Mikey Sherrill, some places we get Mamdani, some places we get Elizabeth Warren, some places we get, whatever. And the party has to win the way it has to win in all of these different kinds of places. And we just, we're going to have to deal with that, right? In order to get back the institutions or some kind of, power symmetry within the institutions, particularly at the federal level. So that's kind of where I am on that. I'm way down in the Democratic Party. CJ and I had a long conversation over the break about whether or not we were going to actually leave the Democratic Party and register as independents, which we may still do. And we are so far withholding our money from anybody but people we know directly who we care about who are running for office. Mm-hmm. Won't give a dime to any of these other people.
That's very interesting. I mean, I've been a registered independent for years, but obviously vote for the Democratic Party and loved when I voted in New York, and often the Working Families Party would make endorsements too. So you could vote for the candidate, but put your energy behind that other vision.
I did that too. I was a big Working Families Party person. I voted for Nader, and I voted for Green Party people, not Jill Stein.
We never did we have to do our whole show on you voting for Nader and third party candidates. I totally agree with you that the Democratic Party is in big trouble and completely out of touch. I want to say that I don't think that Schumer, and I don't know about Gillibrand as much, I don't think Schumer was cowardly or feckless by not supporting Mamdani. I think those are his real beliefs. I think he's a hardcore Zionist and had those fears. And I don't toss this around lightly, but I think he's in bed with the money. Like, I just don't think he's behind Mamdani's vision of, holding the corruption and the outsized power that money has in New York City and our country now to account. I don't think he's behind that.
When's the last time Chuck Schumer took the subway? I mean, or shopped for something in a bodega. Like, unless he did it really awkwardly for a campaign photo op. Like, I mean, come on now, right? And totally. And maybe you're right. Maybe feckless and cowardless. I think Schumer.
I mean, they were wrong.
Yeah.
They were wrong.
Yeah.
And it was horrific what they did. And it was pathetic. And it was another sign
it was
of the massive problems that the Democratic Party have, especially that they then thought bringing Cuomo back in, like after he lost, would that he had any kind of chance. Unbelievable. They were wrong, but I don't think it's because they were afraid of something. I think Mamdani represents something they're not for.
Yeah, I think it's. I see that distinction. I can concede that. I think it's probably both. I do think they're afraid of him. I think the Democratic Party is afraid of Bernie Sanders. I think they are terrified of AOC. And if I were Schumer, I would be really worried about AOC. Because
that's what everyone wants to know.
AOC is a talented, brilliant, authentic, charismatic person too. And, and I want to be clear, I'm not just saying that about style. Like their style and substance are yoked together. And that was true of Obama, right? I mean, there are these folks, and I think Buttigieg is this way. I mean, I know there are criticisms of him, and I share some of them, but he's, as you know, another former student who I care very deeply about, and is, I think, a person of style and substance that needs to be taken seriously. And I think Mamdani is a wonderful example of that.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and obviously, Pete Buttigieg personally, and I don't know. I think he's a person of substance. I think he deeply cares about making the world a better place for people. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he is so talented linguistically. Like his mind is operating on such.
He's brilliant. He is brilliant. I know that for a fact. I can attest to that. He is a brilliant man.
Yeah. I'm not sure he has as firm a set of principles as Mamdani has.
Completely agree.
But where I want us to, I want to note something and then I want to move on is this question of can someone run like Mamdani in Ohio? And I think there's more space for that than the Democratic Party acknowledges. So obviously, no one in Ohio is going to care about the Muslim kid who ate bagels and lox on a Sunday morning. But this core question that he was ruthless about of affordability.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why people voted for Trump, because he said he was going to lower the prices. Literally, that's what they say. Now, the truth is some of these people use that as a cover. And what they really voted for was the racist, regressive, we want to go back to the 1950s. When the white people were in power and we had a bully, right? Mm-hmm. So some of those people are liars. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
But I think there's more space. The Democrats are so quick to say we have to give up our principles.
Absolutely. That's another thing they have to apologize for. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But
the truth is that there are all these states where Kamala Harris lost, but abortion protections were voted in. You know what I mean? And then Democrats are like, well, we have to find pro-choice, pro-life Democratic candidates for those states or we won't win. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And obviously that's a whole other chapter that we could start with next time if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's not what I'm not saying that. I want to be clear about that because I do think the Democrats are and I actually wonder, I think it's a question. It's an open question. If the Democrats are sacrificing values that they hold in order to get elected in ways that they think they can get elected or only get elected, or are they constantly caving and moving into the kind of practical space because they don't know what their values are or don't have them. I mean, I think there's what are the values of the Democratic Party? Does the Democratic Party have values? And is it willing to stick to values? I think all those are open questions. And I think Mamdani, who's a Democrat, but also a democratic socialist, right? He does have values and he is willing to stick to his values. Right. What I'm saying is that, maybe it's because I think sometimes people on the left, and I was one of these people. I still am in part of my soul. See a Mamdani victory and be like, now we got to take that to Ohio, and then we're going to take it to Texas, and then we're going to take it to, and all of a sudden we're like on the brink of the revolution. And I just don't know. I don't think we are. And if we are, awesome. If everyone's we're like at the, at dusk before dawn of universal health care. Fabulous. I am happy to be wrong. But I just don't think we're that close. And I do sometimes think that these important victories, right, and substantive moments of progress and hope, which Mamdani to me really does represent, quickly get woven into a kind of, I think sometimes a delusion or a sort of rootless aspiration that we're expectant in terms of this super progressive future. And I think one thing that Mamdani and others, let's just stick with him for the second, really understand is that people are more complicated, and people are not pure, people are messy. And he was able, in his love for the city and his love for people, he made room for the messy and the multitudes. And I think that is what we need to get to, a kind of politics of integrity that accommodates the mess and the multitude.
But I think you really hit it, like this set, like, does the Democratic Party have a set of values that they're willing to fight for? And that is an open question right now, and has been maybe for a long time. And I think this thing, even if some people disagree with him on certain things, his ability to say, this is who I am and I'm not apologizing for it, is very attractive.
Yeah. I mean, affordability is a frame and an aspiration.
Yeah.
Justice, fairness, equity, dignity, those are values.
Yes.
And so that's what I want to push towards. And again, it's like I'm trying to be someone who holds the party that I vote for accountable. We should all be doing that.
We should all be doing that.
So,
and that's what we're going to keep doing.
To what end, we don't know, but
to what end, we do not know, but we're going to keep moving forward with the work as we know how to do it, and see what we find out.
Yeah. So maybe that's where we end today.
I think that might be where we end today.
In our glorious reunion and reawakening.
Here at the dawn of 2026.
Yes.
Yes.
Breakdown. And we should say that even though we break down emotionally, sometimes psychologically, sometimes physically, but we also try to break things down to make sense of them and to process what's going on. And so breakdown has multiple meanings here. And sometimes it's messy.
Well, if
too.
The truth is, it's messy right now. Things are very messy right now.
It is.
And so I think if we tried to wrap it up in a bow, that would be dishonest and impossible.
Yeah, totally.
So, but it is always helpful to connect with you, Tim. I'm very happy to see you in this space again. And,
yes, and we are back live. We will move forward, and much love to you, my friend. I will see you soon.
You as well. Take good care, everyone.